All right, fam, it is time to talk about core pressure, and I want to tell you guys how to use it, how to refine it, and some red flags to look for to check and see if you are actually maintaining good core pressure through your strength movements. Okay, so what is core pressure? Core pressure is basically an activation of all of your core muscles. Now, most people, when they think of core muscles, only tend to think of the rectus abdominis, which are these six-pack muscles in the front of your stomach. But the core is made up of many different muscles. So not only the rectus abdominis, but also the oblique muscles, the transverse abdominis that wraps around your waist, as well as your pelvic floor muscles, your diaphragm, and several spinal muscles. Core engagement is important for movements like handstands and back bends, as well as strength movements like squats, deadlifts, even the bench press. If we don't have proper core engagement, it can lead to injuries when we're lifting heavy or put into compromising ranges of motion. So in order to lock this in, we have a few things we can think about. The first thing that I want to think about is just a really intrinsic cue. I'm going to imagine that someone punched me in the gut, in the belly, and I need to think about what my muscles would do by instinct. If I got punched in the belly, they're going to tighten. That is a really good core engagement that we don't have to think about. That tightening reflexively is the kind of engagement we need to have for these compound lifts in order to be safe. If that isn't quite getting there for you, or if you're still experiencing pain in these movements, we can also think about it with our breath. So for this, I'm going to take a lying position on my back with my knees bent. And I want to go ahead and take a big inhale in, filling up the belly. And I'm going to exhale all the air out. As I do that, I'm trying to press my spine into the floor, and I'm imagining zipping the air out of my body from my pelvic floor all the way up to my ribs. We want to take every bit of air out, and when you feel that exit, you will feel that pressure around the core, and we want to keep that pressure in the pelvic floor as well. So the pelvic floor should not be relaxed. This is a common mistake I know a lot of folks make. We want to actually have a little bit of contraction here as well as through these upper muscles. The last cue that I like to use for core engagement is a simple one, and it is imagine that you have a tight pair of jeans and you're trying to button up the last buttons or zip up those jeans. We need to pull in to make that happen. We might jump around a little bit. We might contract all those muscles in order to zip up. So that zipping is really helpful because it also cues the pelvic floor engagement, but we want to corset in as well. And that doesn't mean that the back muscles aren't engaging as well. We want to think about the core as a canister, all right? So I think about my whole waist down to my pelvic floor as one big canister that is pressurizing for me to do this movement. When my core is engaged, my diaphragm is pressing down and my pelvic floor is pressing up. My transverse abdominis is tightening in and my rectus abdominis are closing the ribs to the hips. You're going to hear me say that cue a lot. Now, when my core is engaged, should I be breathing or should I be holding my breath? This is a really good question. A lot of times bodybuilders will use a method called the Valsalva maneuver, which is a breathing technique where they hold their breath as they for example, go down in their squat and come up, and then they inhale. We can do the Valsalva maneuver holding the breath, or we can do an exhale on exertion and an inhale afterwards. Both methods are fine. The main point is that we're not losing this tight wrapping of the core. Finally, let's go over a couple of red flags to look out for in your core engagement. Red flag number 1, just sucking the belly button into your spine. This can be helpful for some of your core muscles, but it doesn't address the whole core as our core canister. You might often forget the pelvic floor, the transverse abdominis, or the back spinal muscles. Red flag number 2 is doming the core. So this is when we're pressing our core pressure out towards our belly button. It looks kind of like this. This engages more of the oblique muscles, but forgets our rectus abdominis and our transverse abdominis, as well as the pelvic floor. Good core engagement should feel like a 360-degree activation that also includes our pelvic floor. So when you're doing things like your hollow body hold, we can really wrap in, squeeze from the pelvic floor, and start to crunch a little bit to help with that engagement. Again, pay attention here and avoid pressing that core forward and out. We want to corset in and keep everything tight. So try these cues out in your next strength or acrobatic training day and let me know how it goes for you.